Hello, everyone. The next episode of the DFL's Down Under show is live again here on Wednesday night here in Hobart Town. Smatho Town is back for another day. Happy Independence Day for all of our American friends here tonight. Got my boys' jersey on. I've got my Padres cap here. So anyone who's celebrating the 4th of July tomorrow, good luck to you blokes. Thank you for all the sports that you provide to us here in Australia, especially the NBA. Hef, good evening to you, mate. How's things in your neck of the woods?
Well, I had no idea it was Independence Day coming up, Smatho. I thought we're down under. Leave that to the Yankees. We'll focus on the Australian stuff. Although you're all over the PGA lately, so I'll give you that one. But
Look,
we're going to get to that a little bit later, actually, with your message during the week. Good to be back for another week, though, Smatho. I like your $190 million jersey there too.
Oh, look,
I assume that's Ben Simmons. It's not a new Al Horford number because you are a bit of a... Nah, there we go. Ben Simmons. You're a bit of a bandwagon man, Smatho, but you stuck true there.
Yeah, well, no, he's a talented guy and he's now paid, that bloody bastard. So, well done to him. Look, the other choice was that bicycle top for the Black Caps for tonight since they're playing tonight. So, I didn't want to offend our viewers again by producing that particular number. So, let's just stick to the Independence Day theme tonight. Look, Hef, big week last week in DFS world here, and also we've got a big show here tonight. We're kind of back to that standard Friday night footy, so we don't have to rush through many slates tonight, so which is pretty good. So we'll take our time and get through all the information that we are going to provide for our viewers this evening. But as always, we're going to start with thumbs up for another week, and geez, there wasn't many nominees for down at Moneyball to give the thumbs up this week because we only actually had 3 big winners. So obviously the nominations went to either Eagle Hunter and Humpty 84. You guys won a slate, but no thumbs up to you guys because PK 89 came through the goods and he actually won 2 slates over the weekend. Hef, bring up these sides and let's just dissect how PK went.
PK, I remember he was one of the big names when I first started playing on Moneyball. PK he used to be all over the NBA tournaments over there, and he was one of the first usernames I remember, and I hadn't seen him around a lot, but he's back in a vengeance the last few weeks, PK, especially on the AFL. We're going to get is Avocado awake back there, Smatho? Can we get him?
Yeah, get those teams up, Avocado. We're talking about PK. PK, look, Geelong versus Adelaide. Yeah. Let's have a look at his Geelong Adelaide side. And look, we talked about Riley O'Brien over old Muscle Stanley, and just didn't he go whack on that particular slate?
Yeah, I've got grave concerns for Reece Stanley. I don't think he's going to be in the team this week. He was just hopeless. They just ended up using Blixarves in the ruck, didn't they?
Yep.
So no surprise to see Blixarves in the winning team there. That was the combo, Riley O'Brien and Mark Blixarves. They just had the ruck to themselves in the second half. Jed Buse, did you see that one coming, Smatho?
Oh, well, kind of. I think I read somewhere that he was a good price. So he only had to reach 60 or 70 to reach value, and then he just produced a ceiling game, which is good. Because I think all the Geelong backs had a pretty good game that particular, because we're all on Zach Tui, but he didn't go too well. But if the blokes had Jed Buse, he was 30% owned in the end because of his price. So, yeah, PK 89 managed to go through. I actually caught up with PK, Hef. Got to know him over the last 24 hours. He actually... we reached out to him for the Moneyball locker room site, and obviously there'll be an article there very soon about his particular win. Yeah, he's actually laid up after some surgery after having his appendicitis out. So, yeah, so he's had a little bit more time to look at these games, and yeah, so much so that he went on Sunday night and went Wooshka on the Sunday slate for 866.
Highlighted by Rowan Marshall. What a star he is.
Holler for a Marshall. What a boy he is.
Yeah. Salem, that's very low. They're 2% for Christian Salem. He's always he's got that big ceiling you can go for. Salem, Griffin Logue let everyone down. Finally, it happened. He only got 40, but it didn't matter because PK won with him anyway. It's nearly 70% owned, Griffin Logue. Gee whiz.
Look, Jared Lyons at 5% at 8.2. Just the Josh Battle's an interesting one because he's getting a lot of ball down secured, and his price was just a bit too high. Just go, I can't rely on him. But at 4% for the ton, Must have been a good sweat on the Sunday, seeing all these blokes come through.
Speaking of St Kilda, we got to get rid of Richo, don't we? It's just painful watching these St Kilda games. They go back and forward and back and forward. They don't end up anywhere. It's like watching Richmond about 5 years ago. I can't stand watching them. So we'll get rid of Richo and we'll give him your 2 thumbs up. We'll move on to his Smatho.
Yep, PK. 2 thumbs up, you PK. Well done. 2 slates in the weekend. 2 thumbs up for you. 2 wins. Well done, buddy. Well deserved. And look forward to seeing you more contests on the leaderboard and the money ball. Now back over at Draft Stars. The tickets are still going through the door for the golden ticket for the AFL Live Final, presented by KO Sports and Draft Stars. Some great winners. Shanke, JK for his second ticket. Hill Dog 53. Kev Steve FJ, Big A Jib, Jacko Baker, Road 15, and Bestiano FC, who I managed to catch up in our DFR article this week for Small Dogs. He's quite stoked to be coming to the final and rub his shoulders with the big guys here for the final, including yours, Hef. He's looking forward to seeing with you. Hef, these competitions getting bigger and bigger for you, mate. You must be starting to get a little bit worried about these qualifiers.
I am. Nice to see Jay get his second ticket finally.
Oh, really?
Took his time, did he? He's too busy winning golf, bloody tickets and all that sort of stuff. But
yes,
finally got there and joined a few of us. I've noticed Bestiano gets in there on Twitter, so it'd be good to see him at the live final. Jacko Baker, I'm pretty sure he was sniffing around the Big Bash live final as well.
Yes,
another good article by you. I got told off for slurping up to you when I retweeted your article during the week, Smatho.
Oh, did you?
I won't say who mentioned that, but I like reading them, so I'll stand by it. I really look forward to reading about who wins their tickets and what they do, because everyone comes from different backgrounds, and it's actually quite interesting to see the stories behind the username. So keep writing them, Smatho. I'll stick up for you.
No worries. You just keep the trolls at bay, mate. That's the way to do it. Now, before we get on the footy, I've cleared some space on the run sheet tonight about Thursday, because Thursday now is going to be pretty busy here on the DFS sites and also the DFR website as well, where all of our free content and data tools are available for all of our viewers and our subscribers to the YouTube channel as well. We've got 2 events. The PGA is on Thursday night. It's the 3M Open in Minnesota. It's a brand new event here, Hef. Hef, we didn't get to talk about much PGA last week, so I thought let's talk about PGA tonight. And did you catch any of my work over the last weekend? Did you, mate?
Yeah, your head's been wobbling out of control. We're going to bring your team up, Smatho.
Yes, bring it up. Bring it up.
Look at that. 220th. What a team. What a team. Like, imagine if you finished in the top 100, we'd have a standalone episode just for Smatho's golfing exploits. But I will give you a little pat on the back, which you don't need because you've given them to yourself in a massive frenzy last week. But 0% Nate Lashley. I thought he was in the WWE. But, 142 at 0%. I don't know if the story is you finding him or the fact that you found him and you still only come 220th. What's the biggest story there?
What's the deal there? Well, Dustin Johnson was the massive favourite for the event, and I just couldn't get away from him. So he was always my first pick in the team, and then had to get a cheap guy. And then I saw Nate Lashley was actually a late add to the tournament, right? He was looked like an emergency. So he wasn't on even DraftKings site. He wasn't on the sports books in America, so no one could actually pick him. And then the whole draft starts at him, and it's like, okay, I'll pick you. I'll probably be the only one to be picking him. And lo and behold, he shoots 63 after the first round. I'm thinking, oh God, I'm on here. And then I looked at Dustin Johnson. I'm like, crap. And I was pretty much sick all week. So shout out to The Moment, who put in his side in twice and took first place there. So he had a great side. He got 6 and 6-3. It was only 8K on Draft Stars last week, and they've gone to 10K, and it didn't feel last week, Hef. So if they've bumped up to 10K, there's a bit of space now with no Thursday night footy now. So I expect the 10K to fill. So Brooks Koepka, my man's back this week, and I said in my article today that I actually am pretty bullish on him because he doesn't give a shit during these dodgy PGA events during their summer. He only comes for the majors, but I think he's going to give the old fingers up and say, I'm going to beat all you blokes. So check that out on the DFR website. And then we've got our NRL boy back in Corey France.
Oh, he's
Also known
back.
as Frenchie. He's back. Yeah,
Finally.
he's
How
done
long
it.
has he been gone for?
Oh, look, he's been away for just, let's say, a few weeks. He's missed a few NRL slates, which I'm sure he's been begging to come back into because it's been a bit easy without him around in terms of the Draft Stars and Moneyball sites. But he's back and he's provided us with great content for the Storm versus Dragons matchup on Thursday. Big State of Origin slate here on next Wednesday. Hef again.
Ooh.
So I'm going to be torn again between the Origin and the show again. But I've got something cooking, Hef, with Frenchie. We might be able to you might have some competition, Hef, going forward.
We're not doing an NRL version, are we?
Oh, well, did I say that? I said I've got something cooking.
So I'm extremely worried.
Yep. Yeah, you better lift. So,
gee whiz.
So that's next Wednesday, but also Thursday is 5K events here on Moneyball and for Draft Stars. So go check out his article. He's got his projections back, so you can. They're free as well, so you can look at his numbers and look at his thoughts. And all you have to do is just have his numbers ready to go. Good times. All right, I better talk to you about your expertise then. Let's get stuck in the footy. Friday night footy now, so no more Thursday nights. Actually, no, scrap that. Let's talk about the guy who is king of DFS at the moment.
I thought we were about to.
Oh,
not me. Oh, someone else.
Not you. No.
Good. I thought you were going to be carried away. Who are we talking about?
It's our bloke Ace Previews, our tennis guru. He's jumped again on the DFR guys. He's come and used his services with us. He's providing Wimbledon tips for us throughout this week while DraftKings are putting out some great, huge contests on DraftKings. Some changes with DraftKings Tennis as well, which means you get points now for guys who don't actually get to play a game, which is good. That was the kind of the bugbear for all the DFS players here, obviously in Oz and obviously in America, about you're not getting points if the opponent doesn't turn up. So that's been fixed. Been enjoying his previews. I've been doing his tips, and hopefully we'll be able to snag some money over the next few nights that you have.
Yeah, he's a machine, Ace. I really enjoy his work, so make sure you have a read on there. And I liked how you tweeted Roto Grinders to say we should hide this from all the Americans. That was genius.
Yeah.
Get in there before Smatho tweets them again and takes the game away.
Bit of reverse psychology there, was
it? Yeah, it was brilliant. Some of your best work, Smatho. We're getting the footy now. Time for the footy.
All right, let's talk some footy. My time is up. So let me just introduce you to the Friday night footy here on the DFS. It's Hawthorn versus Collingwood. So we've got a 14.5 line with 158.5 total. Sites, Moneyball, big Friday night slate with a $75,000 contest, and then Draft Stars are doing a big $100,000 contest as well. Draft Stars also have their little promotion where you pop out some entries into the 100K and you'll get tickets for the 75 Friday night fixture, which is pretty good of Draft Stars. Some team news though. We saw Isaac Quainer. He's going to debut for the Pies. He got the call up this morning. He's going to be 4,200 as a defender of Moneyball and 5,600 on Draft Stars as also a defender. So could be our first kind of chalky play for Friday night. I chucked on the resources or the data tools now it's called on the DFR website and had a look around and noticed now that the Magpies in the last 5 games are much higher than their season average in terms of points against for the backs. So if we show this kind of graph on the screen, you can see the Magpies, they're in the mid-table there for the backs, but now they're just kind of creeping up to the same level as around Hawthorn. So we can say that, the Hawks are leaking points to backs all the time, but, Magpies are starting to leak. And I think, why was that? And then I actually just jumped onto the player scores for Collingwood and see, who actually scored all their points in the backs. And then I realised the Bulldogs game, they got absolutely creamed in terms of the fantasy scoring. So that could be a bit of an anomaly, but there is a trend there. Teams can now score against the Magpies in these positions. So, Hef, as we show you the teams here, let's have a look at the rucks And we've got the two Warriors here. We've got Big Boy McAvoy and Brodie Grundy. And then we've got Segler and Roughhead on the side as well in the supporting cast. So I kind of have concerns with the two ruck combination with the Hawks, with Big Boy really suffering in his fantasy point scoring. I thought he was injured a couple of weeks ago, but no, his time on the ground was heaps. So do you share that kind of sentiment? Do you think concerns for the Hawks and they've got to pay up for Grundy?
I do share that. A little off topic, in a keeper league through the buys, I did make Big Boy my captain against Callum Sinclair, and he got, 32?
Yeah, 40. Yeah.
So I hate Big Boy McAvoy right now because I had a draw. I found this really difficult to go 11,400 for Brodie Grundy. As good as he is at the MCG, Big Boy and Segler are a pretty solid combination in terms of stopping the opposition ruck. So I find it really hard that you can pay 11,400 in tournaments at least for Grundy. You might go with him in a cash game scenario because you know he's going to get you 100, 110 most likely. You might go a bit higher. But then it's also hard to play guys against Grundy. He hasn't been as scary as someone like Max Gawn. But Segler's even been outscoring Big Boy lately. All this leads me to Jared Roughhead. Jared, I've always called him Jared. His name's Jordan. We'll touch on him once we get into the backs, but I'd probably lean, if I've got to play one of those traditional rucks, maybe lean to Big Boy because everyone's probably jack of him like I am. He's still reasonably priced, but I think Roughhead's a really good angle to take, and we'll mention that when we touch on the backs.
Okay, let's speak of backs then. We talked about Quainer. He's going to be pretty much a key piece of your sides now, being his cheap salary. But a lot of comments about old Sicily. He's been experimented up forward. His fantasy scoring has suffered as a result. All the guys who got him in season longs are doing their nanas over him. But there's not many backs here to choose from. Obviously, he's going to be back. He'll surely be back. You might get the matchup with DeGoey. And then you got Pies guys who, they've been yo-yoing this season as well. Like, look at Jeremy Howe. I've been playing him so much, think he's just going to be back to his role, chipping around half back. But lo and behold, he's been set tasks on players. What can we do here with the backs? I don't know.
Yeah, well, okay. I love playing the backs against the Hawks. You probably got caught last week with West Coast if you did that, but that was a dirty day. The back line, they don't score in those wet games. You want a nice dry deck, which we're probably going to get Friday night. I really want to attack all the Collingwood backs here, and I want to play them with Roughhead in the ruck. So Roughhead in the ruck, you can play another. The Quain is pretty obvious now to play at 4,200, and might even open the chance for you to play some Grundy too if you want to play Grundy. But Darcy Moore still cheap. Crispy is got that high ceiling. I just love the idea of stacking these Collingwood backs with Roughhead. In terms of Sicily, I think it's a great week to play Sicily if you don't want to stack the Pies backs as well, because everyone's jack of him. Like, I love playing blokes that everyone is sick of for starters, because you usually get the lower ownership than what they should be. His scores have been ruined by that forward experiment. I think they've given up on that. But even though he goes back last week against West Coast, it's a wet game. It's not really suiting that intercept marking, chip it around the backline game that he thrives on. And yeah, I think he's in a great spot to bounce back Sicily if you're looking to pay up and get away from the Collingwood backlines. But I do love the Collingwood backlines in this match.
All right, fair enough. You trust in the resources here on the DFR site. Just smash the Hawks backs. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. All right, let's talk about mids. And there is a plethora of mids with very high price tags here, Hef. I think I see 7 genuine mids over 8.3K on Moneyball. And then you got to throw in Isaac Smith with 7.6, which is going to probably be pretty popular as well for some saver for salary. And he's building as well, Isaac Smith, especially, on his dry deck. Got to pick a few, I suppose. You can't have them all.
You can't. Now, we saw Daniel Howe come back last week, and he went straight at Yo and tagged him constantly. So I think we've got to be wary of who he goes to this week for Collingwood. And like, who's there to go to now? I think he's going to go to Pendlebury. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't. Yeah,
I'm only
I mean,
asking because I'm only asking.
look, the
I've been hopeless.
side ass is there as well, but has he been really
Uh,
effective side ass? I don't know.
No, he's just guarding space out on the wings at the moment, side bottom. I think Pendlebury's the guy in the middle that Howe will go to. But my record in the last few weeks in predicting these tags has just been horrendous, and my results have pretty much copied that. I don't think he'll go to Treloar because he's a bit of a butcher, so I think it makes Treloar just a super play. So leave him alone. He just goes and goes and goes. Those last 5-10 minutes, he just sniffs his chance to boost his stats. Everything we love from a fantasy mid. So I love Treloar. 10,000 I think is a pretty fair price. We saw North Melbourne get a hold of the Pies last week. But there's ominous signs for the Pies at the moment. I know they've got injuries and they've got gamblers and they've got all sorts of stuff going on. But the writing was on the wall there against the Bulldogs. And then North Melbourne just made them look stupid last week. And the inside mids really got into them. So they had Zeeble, we had Cunnington, we had Anderson. They all had hundreds. So I think straight away we look here at Jaeger, we look at Warple. Even though at the start of the year we were shying away from playing midfielders against the Pies, I think we don't have to be quite so scared now. So I think it's a great spot to pay up in the midfield in this game. And I think Treloar, Jaeger, Warple, they're the guys I want to be getting a lot of into my lineups.
Yeah, I like it. Bit of balance. Just don't go straight pie. Just think about the Hawks. Even Shields is. He's been going well. So let's talk about forwards then. And obviously we've got to pay down for these guys if we're going to pay up for the mids. And one guy sticks out straight away is Josh Dacos. He had 83 last week on his first game for the season. He's around that 5K. Not many else, really good premium forwards here. There's only really DeGoey, Impey, and Main as your other choices if you're going to pay up. And then I think there's is it Halloran for the cheap forward as well. So not many here, Hef. Is there any else you want to have a look at?
How about Rocket Eade this week? Just outed himself as a fantasy player. Got on radio and said Jordan DeGoey, he's overrated. He's very disappointing. He just doesn't go out and get the 25 possessions that you think he should get. Like, he's basically their full forward, for Christ's sake. Like, just because Rocket is putting him in his fantasy team and he's not getting 25 touches, I couldn't believe hearing that. But he's a star DeGoey. But it doesn't always bring home the bacon in fantasy. I'm going to spend down. I think Dacos is an obvious option. Look, I don't think he's a lock by any stretch. Hanrahan, I think he showed enough in tough conditions against West Coast last week to think that 4,400 is a very fair price for him. I think he's got a bit of potential. If I'm going to pay up for a forward, I probably prefer to go with Main.
Yeah,
He has some really good games at the MCG. He loves getting out on those wings and chipping it around, and he's just an awesome guy to throw in your Collingwood stacks at the very least. So he's my favourite forward to pay up for, and well, DeGoey can always rip a game apart, but yeah, he's not going to get you 25 touches like Rocket Eade wants.
No. There's still no Stratton this week, though, so he doesn't get that premium fullback matchup too. So might have to consider him. Now, speaking of considering, I've got my first sneaky bet for the show tonight, and I do want to leave you out on these sneaky bets, Hef. So I'm actually going to give you a choice of overs and unders here, Hef.
Is this like odds and evens?
No. Overs and unders. We'll play odds and evens later. How's that?
Oh, okay.
Brodie Grundy on BetEasy. He's got the over-under line here of 118.5. Now, considering the double ruck with Segler and Big Boy, and he's been killing it in the last couple of weeks, this is a bit of a baity kind of line at 118. It's under 120 points. What do you reckon? Overs or unders?
Under. I don't have to think twice about that one, actually, Smatho.
Ooh,
Under.
Just deposit in the account and just put it on that.
Well,
gamble responsibly.
Yes, you don't want to know how much I'll get on, but under.
All right.
I have $2 to win $1.90. No.
Nice. Great. Let's see if we get some head wobble next week.
Gamble responsibly.
With your $2. All right. Saturday slate. Let's move on to Saturday. Big 5 games are back, so we're gonna have to do some serious thinking in Hef. We've got the Bombers in Sydney at the MCG, Gold Coast and Richmond up in Metricon, Adelaide Port in the Showdown at Adelaide Oval, which is the twilight game, Bulldogs in Geelong at Marvel, and Freo and West Coast at Up to Staben in the Derby. 50k on Moneyballs available, 60k on DraftStar. So this is the Kings slate on Saturday. Now, in my resources, research on the Daily Fantasy Rankings website, I've actually gone and looked at the previous showdowns and derbies to see if there's any edge there. West Coast, actually, have been doing some numbers on Freo. Numbers went through the roof back in round 4, some lot of ceiling games there, and Fife was injured for that particular game. So I'm thinking, okay, fair enough. And then Crouch did his hammy in the previous showdown earlier this year. So we have to bear that in mind if you're looking at your previous history, such as your Sloans and your Johnsons and things like that. So let's have a look at the obvious. The obvious is right now is Tiger Stacks versus Gold Coast, because the Sydney Stacks did work last week. For a moment, I thought they wouldn't, but they actually did. Although I went 100% on Lloyd last week, and he only stunk it up for a 49. So which is disappointing, and it made sense. The ball didn't really go down across the pockets of the Sydney, also the Gold Coast forward line. So that's just me being stupid.
But that's got to be some concern for Bashahuli this week, because fair enough, the ball wasn't down there, but there was a young fella called Brad Shear, who was a promising junior, but he hasn't done a whole lot. Sounds like every youngster on Gold Coast list, really, doesn't it? But he got given that forward tagger role, which is one step from being out of the competition altogether. But he did it pretty well on Lloyd. So maybe they think, well, Sherry, that's your job. That's where you're thriving, forward tagger. And if he's going to play that role again, he's going to go to Bashahuli, I reckon.
So just remind me how good the tagging picks have been going this year again.
Awful. You've agreed every time. I don't know if that's you being polite or you, but just something to consider, Smatho.
Okay.
Just something to consider.
Let's move on then. I've just spotted him. Let's see. I hope that burns up in my face next week. Let's have a look. Rucks.
You're on very thin ice, Smatho.
10 rucks to choose from, possibly more. And we've got a new ruck this week.
Hang on. Before we go on, Bashahuli, over under 80. Put him on the line. Over or under 80. Bashahuli this week. Under? Oh, you're sitting on the fence. I remember that next week. Fence. Let's get on to the rucks. Get on to the rucks. Splitters, go on.
Grassy Knoll. Have you heard of him before? Sydney.
I have, actually. I have.
Apparently, he's pretty fresh to the game. He hasn't been playing much, and he's going to pretty much be picked.
Yeah. Well, they got no one else, do they?
No, they don't. They don't have. If you look through the other rucks, and I read the Sydney website, and I was like, what about these other blokes? And they're all cooked. They've got 3 blokes cooked, so this is fourth man deep on their list, playing a bit of Neefle and not doing much, but he's going to get a game on this weekend at 3,500 or Moneyball.
And if you're coming into your first game in AFL football as a ruckman, who would you like to go against, Smatho? Give me one name in the whole competition you'd like to play against.
Hang on. Bell Chambers is injured, so it's Zach Clark.
He's back.
He's back. He's back. The man who wears the sleeve and he's on his knees. Well done. That's going to be an absolute.
This is going to be a highlight of the weekend, isn't it? Zach Clark versus the Grassy Knoll. Gee whiz.
But they're going to be owned. They're going to be cheap. They're going to be owned, and so much so that we've got some ding dong battles. We've got Windscreens O'Brien up against Lysette, who's been on fire for Port ever since they give Ryder the old ass, and then those are the 2 marquee rucks, and then we've got those 2 bums at the end. Is there anyone else you're interested in?
I want to touch on Lysette versus O'Brien, because it's not often we get such a good form line. But we had O'Brien. Well, 2 weeks ago we had Lysette versus Stanley, and it was 140 to 50 or something. Lysette just ripped him apart. And then last week, O'Brien came up against Stanley, and we saw we were talking about Blixarves just taking over from Stanley because he was so bad, but Stanley did get about 70, and then Blixarves got 100, and O'Brien got about 120. Load probably all means nothing, but Lycett's effort against Stanley was probably a bit stronger. I think Lycett's probably a bit better defensively than O'Brien. If I was a betting man, which you know I'm definitely not, Smatho.
Yep.
I would take Lycett to beat O'Brien in a head-to-head, and
Yes.
Lycett's cheaper, so I prefer Lycett as a play. How about our man Fake Chow that we've brought up a couple of weeks ago? He had 100 last week. He wasn't even rucking. He was mainly playing forward. Even when he was rucking, he didn't have to ruck because St Kilda just let him catch the ball from the throw-ins and run in and kick a goal. So he's only 3,900, coming off a ton. Like, it's not often you get to chase points like that. And now he plays against the Gold Coast Suns. So there's a fair bit there going for Big Maybor Chol. But I've been on your favourite website, the Bomb site, Smatho. Looking up the weather.
You've been checking out Stevie Jacobs' good work again, have you?
No, I've been looking up to make sure it's not going to rain for West Coast. Although they won in the wet last week, that ruined my theory. It's going to rain on the Gold Coast. They must have thought I was going there to holiday this week. I'm not. It's going to rain anyway. I couldn't think of a worse player to play than Maybor Chol if it's going to be wet. What about Aaliyah? Is there any chance that the Swans just use him instead of Grassy Knoll? He was all right last week in the ruck, I thought.
He was all right. He's all right, but then that means they've got to put another back in. And I don't think they have many backs, the old Swannies. I mean, I don't think Cunningham's back yet. If Cunningham is coming back this week, you have to consider him, but he'll be so underdone. So I think they want Cunningham in the knee full. Just chuck Grassy Knoll in for a game, see how he goes. And if he goes crap, then they'll chuck Aaliyah in next week.
Okay, well, keep an eye on the team lineups there, because I think if Aaliyah rucks, I think he's a great play.
Yep. I think he's a good player too. Yeah, if they don't name anyone, no Grassy Knoll, then Aaliyah must be considered. All right, let's look at the defence. And I've got another graphic to show up for you, Hef. This is a bit of a theory for me. So the Eagles and Dockers game could be a good game to target according to the resources on the site. I mean, we've got Logan still at 4K. We've got Yo, we've got Hearn, we've got Conker for Freo. Even Nelson, who last week scored 75. See that bloody thing sticking out like a honeymooner's, what in the middle there. And that's the Eagles' last 5 games, backs total. It's pretty much the worst in the comp. And then you got, so and Freo's up there too. But what's going on with the Eagles? They're just starting to let the backs have their balls.
That's interesting. That number is heavily spiked by Sydney. I only just got what you said then, Smatho. I'm going to have to catch that again on the replay because Avocado's going off his head in the background here. That Sydney game really ruined those numbers. I haven't looked close enough at the Hawthorn game last week to see what happened there, but I'm not falling for this one, Smatho. I'm going to stick with the season-long numbers, and Freo give up a lot to the Eagles. It's going to be pretty dry over there. It might be a bit slippery because it's a night game, I think, but I'm going to target West Coast heavily in the backs. I don't want to target your man Jackson Nelson, who could be the worst player getting a game in the AFL at the moment.
All right.
He's a real scrapper. The wet conditions would have suited him last time, but he's extremely limited. 3,900. You can have him all to yourself. I want to go with my man Shannon Hearn, whose numbers are down. His price is down to about 8,400. He's just a star, Shannon Hearn. Even though his numbers are down, he does everything right. He's in the right spots. He's never beaten 1-on-1, and he's got a huge ceiling, which I'm hoping we're going to clean up on this week. Yo, I don't think they're going to tag him. They haven't been tagging Freo, have they? You know what I'm like with taggers lately, Smatho. Help me out here.
I don't know. You're self-confessed poor judge of a tag, so how can I help you? No, I don't think they'll tag Freo.
I don't think they'll tag. Well, Yo, no. I'll tell you one thing about Yo. He's the closest thing the Eagles have to a Nate Fife clone, and for some reason, every time they play Freo, it started with Yo tagging Fife, but he always seems to get up for this game. It's almost like he takes it on himself to try and outdo Fife. So he's had some massive games against Freo. You would have looked up the numbers previously, wouldn't you, Smatho, in your research?
I did look up the numbers, and obviously Fife didn't play the last derby, so it's going to be a bit tough to.
We got to go back a bit further. You've been busy. I'll let you off there, Smatho. But he has. I do remember one night he had 140 something. He just totally destroyed him. I think he's going to bounce back hard, and even though he's in the backs, he's going to be in the guts all night. Hutchings
cooked. Hutchings cooked. No tag there this week.
Have to worry about him. Thanks for your input there, Avocado.
Yep.
I'm all into Eagles. Have a look at that Richmond number on that. Can we pull up that graph again, Avocado? Or if we utilised all your abilities tonight already? Smatho's had you working overtime. That number of Richmond, that's almost halved in the last 5 weeks.
It's pretty small, isn't it?
So we were targeting Richmond, but we keep saying every week it's just getting harder and harder to go against the Tigers. So Freo is only the only real team I want to target here. So that's going to leave me looking at just value options. And we've got a couple. We've got Rourke Smith. He's got the shittest hair in the comp, but he's got some real get up and go in him. And he's still only 3,500.
Yeah.
So he stands out. And Logue, you said Logue. He got 42 last week. Like that was the time to take him on. The ownership was just through the roof, and it had to come. He's not a high scorer, Logue. Don't be blinded by recency bias. Get on KCP's articles on the website and have a look at some of those bias articles. That's really interesting reading. You can play some Logue, but he's probably going to be over-owned again at that price.
All right, go the fade. Go the fade on the Logue. Fair enough. All right, let's move on to the mids. And as we are a bit of a theme here on this show, we say, hey, Gold Coast, who is the number one mid for the opposition? And you spin it up, and it's Dustin Martin for the Tigers, just under 10K. So obvious it is. I'm going to fade him, Hef. Am I right to do that? And then, as we talked about, get bumps for other Tiger players, the ones that just sit underneath, your Prestiges and your Lamberts and things like that. I reckon I should just go after them instead of Dustin. What do you reckon? And also give me your thoughts on your other games on the slate as well. But it's obvious that Richmond mids could be the play.
Yeah, they're the obvious one. Why are we fading Dusty?
Why? Because he's going to have a high ownership.
Is that all?
Be the highest. Well, yes, he's had great form, and then he didn't do much last year against Gold Coast up at Metricon because Rewalt ended up kicking 10 goals. So, and they, Tigers are not Tigers are not a great fantasy scoring team in general. Yes, they do have a glorious matchup against the Gold Coast, but I just prefer the other Tigers mids at cheaper salaries.
Yeah, you haven't sold that to me at all, Smatho. I'm going to be with the crowd on Dusty. Like he's 4 tons in a row. I think there's better players to fade. I think I'm going to go with. He's almost. Yeah, I hate going with the big ownership, but I think you've got to pick your spots, and I don't think this is a spot to not play someone just because of the ownership level. So we'll butt heads next Wednesday night. After we're taking the Mickey out of you, telling you there's tries in the State of Origin again, we'll revisit Dusty. We'll have a little sneaky bet between ourselves on Dusty. Over under 120. What do you reckon?
Over under 120. Yeah, I'll take the under, and you probably have to set up a head-to-head in the Moneyball lobby room. And
yeah,
if you got the elbows out,
and you can pick one with no one.
Correct. Sounds great.
Right. What else we got?
Who else? Look, I like the Bulldogs Cats game actually, because obviously what Bulldogs is doing at the moment, they've been scoring quite a lot of points, and Geelong's been scoring a lot of quiet points. I think we can see a bit of a fantasy shootout this one though.
Yeah, they're hard to score against the Dogs, which that surprised me when I saw those numbers, that how hard they are to score against. And then Geelong's quite hard to score against as well. So that's an interesting one. Maybe they might sort of offset each other. I like targeting Adelaide when I'm playing the big mids because they don't tag. So I'm looking at blokes like Boak, which I'm not going to be able to play in the mids or Moneyball. I've got to play him as a forward. Rocky's going to be back after his 57 touches, and he knew every single one of those stats when they interviewed him on Saturday night.
That was funny.
And there's a bit of rain around as well. That suits those blokes. They'll be in there tackling. just gorging themselves around the contest. So that's the sort of pivot away from just the obvious Dusty, Prestia, Cochin, Lambert, even Jack Graham probably comes up nicely against Gold Coast at a cheaper price. A couple of other value guys. Lipinski, how good's Lipinski been?
Yeah, no,
Out of
he looked
nowhere.
like he was going to have a down game last week, and then all of a sudden he still scored some late goals, some late junk time stuff. But yeah, he's going great guns, and obviously his salary is still that great value for him at the moment.
Yeah, he's still sub 7K, so
yeah,
he's still too cheap. And Dylan Clark, this is almost getting boring playing Dylan Clark, so this might be just a stupid take, but he just keeps banging out 60s at $4.5 grand. Like, do you reckon anyone's getting bored of playing Clark and they want to go for something different?
I don't know. But there's something different to play though.
No, it sounds stupid. So, like, you just got to go with him again because his floor is 15 times, and now he gets back to the MCG where he dominated and turned up against Pat Cripps. I'm just hoping people get bored of playing him because I can't wait to play Dylan Clark. He's not even tagging that hard anymore. Like Josh Kelly, after they had the bounce, they just went separate directions last week. So he's just a great player again, Dylan Clark.
Well, you never know. He might get dropped. You never know. Let's go on the forwards. Then obviously Port have their second backup ruckman in Ladhams. He's pretty much a good salary relief for the slate. Especially if you're doing a little single lineup, getting your studs in. Obviously, I talked about the bump for Richmond players. Obviously, if they're going to score a stack of points against Gold Coast, you'll have to look at their forwards as well. I nearly had Lukosius in my size last week, and then I started to get very sick after having 40 points to quarter time in the Sydney Gold Coast game. So I reckon I'm pretty sneaky in Lukosius. I think they're going to let him run through the wing, hopefully the midfield as well. What else, Hef? There's not really many studs in this particular Saturday slate that I'm looking at, apart from Boak. And I think it's Dunkley as well. The rest are all pretty cheap.
Yeah, Boak and Dunkley, they're the ones. They're safe. They're safe when you want to spend up. Lukosius is going to be a superstar. His use of the ball is unbelievable, and I played him on halfback the last couple of weeks. He does go missing. Like, he's had games where he's got 40 in the first half and not scored the second half, but he's just steadily improving. I think he's definitely worth looking at because he's still quite cheap. The forward I want to look at this week is Tom Lynch, who, like, ever since he let me down in round one, he's just been pretty flat all year. But now he's against his old team on his old home ground. There's going to be 700 raving Gold Coast fans screaming at him all game. How do you think he's going to respond? Is he the type of bloke to step up and kick six against them, or is he just going to hide behind the behind post? What do you reckon?
Oh, yeah, the old revenge game narrative. I love it. The old NBA style. Oh, look, he's a big chance here to rub his nose in it. I'll tell you what, 80 if you can get 80 points out of Tom Lynch at 5K,
that's huge.
Laughing. But he's only been scoring 40 to 50. So, if there's any opportunity for him to have a ceiling game, it is this week, for sure.
I think he's definitely playable, Lynch. Especially given this, the forwards. I don't really like the forwards. Tom Hawkins, he's been the bane of my life this year, Tom Hawkins. But this is his game. This is big forwards are killing the Dogs. Like, we saw Charlie Curnow just go berserk a few weeks ago against them. Under the roof, 6,900. We've laughed about blokes being a great GPP player because that means they're going to go hopeless. But I think he is a great GP player this week.
Well, good. Okay. You agree with my take about the Richmond forwards, though?
Yeah, that mosquito fleet, they're all going to bob up, I guess. Those blokes like Castagna and Butler and all those other little midgets, they're hard to catch, but they get a great spot.
Now, Hef, I've got another sneaky for you.
Oh.
All right. New game this week. We talk about odds and evens. You want to play odds and evens? Let's play a bit of...
Let me spin the wheel.
Let's play a bit of disposal Keno. All right, so I've jumped on the Sportsbet's website and I looked up,
Yep.
Richmond possessions and things like that, seeing if there's any sneaky value. And then this popped up. It was pick your own disposal. And I thought, oh, hello, I'll have a look at this. 20 to more disposal, 25, 30, 35. And you get to choose which one you like the best, Hef. You're playing Keno, you're playing one number. Not this 9 out of 9 kind of stuff. You get one and you win. What do you reckon? That Keno ticket there.
I just want to spin the wheel instead, Smatho.
Not the money wheel.
No, the odds and evens will. I'm going to stick with this Gold Coast sort of angle and go 35 or more touches Dion Prestia, 450.
450. Yeah. No, I was looking at that too. Yeah.
I can't have Hooley because we've got our little.
You've got your fade. Yeah.
Martin, like 275 is a gift, but I'm going to hunt for a bit more value. Prestia. Actually, Martin will do it as well. Martin will get 35 on his ear.
No, one number. Stick with your Prestia.
This will turn into mixed multi in a minute.
You can't have that.
Martin and Prestia.
Right, fair enough.
Taking two. Take the all up. Just a feast.
The Cornella. See how you go. All right. Very good, Hef. Let's move on to Sunday. 3 games again on Sunday, which is Carlton and Melbourne, North versus St Kilda, and Giants playing the Lions up in Brisbane. So it's 40,000 on Moneyball and 50,000 on Draft Stars itself. Let's have a quick look at this particular Sunday slate. Giants against the stingy Lions is one angle you have to look at. You can ignore the ruck stats for Melbourne because it looks like Gawn is not playing this week. And Carlton mids, as always, are leaking pretty bad. I could see a few stacks here on the first game, which is the Carlton-Melbourne game, stacking all the Melbourne players versus Carlton, who are looking for their second win in a row. Hef, let me talk some general thoughts of this particular slate on Sunday.
How up and about were you when they beat Freo, the Blues?
It was a lively Sunday dinner I had, watching Freo crack under the pressure.
Yeah. So
how good was Daisy Thomas's goal late? And he was pretty happy with that one.
The corpse of Daisy Thomas, what a performance it was. Now, one thing I found interesting is did they try and use Ed Curnow to tag Fife in that first half? Is that, you're a Carlton fan?
I didn't get to see the first half. All I read was that he had so many clearances out of the game. It was one of the records, apparently.
I didn't watch the first half too closely, but when I watched the second half, like Jack Silvani was just everywhere Fife was, and athletically he's a pretty good matchup. Jack Silvani, he's got a bit of size about him to go with Fife. And then I just sort of read some reports that they tried Curnow and he was no good. And, like Fife was flying in that first half. So do they give Silvani that job again this week against Clayton Oliver? I wonder, because that seems a pretty good matchup. But then, like Clayton Oliver isn't as damaging as Fife. Saw some awful disposal numbers for Melbourne this week. Great man Mick McGuan was getting stuck into them, and they had Oliver, Viney, Harms all under 70%. So whether they even bother to tag anyone, Carlton, because Dave Teague's got this great game plan now where he's just letting them attack and he's letting them play, and it's so much better to watch. So like you say, I think stacking is going to be pretty popular in this game if they go head-to-head. But I'm just a little bit nervous of Silvani. Big Prusy Bear, if they give him the keys, he's cheap. He's only about 5,000 something. He's definitely very playable in the ruck. Don't snooze on the Kangas. How good are they going? Another interim coach that's dominating. Have we got a sneaky Smatho bet on a North back this week? That's been your go-to, Smatho, taking on St Kilda. Have you got one for us?
No, I don't. To be honest,
no.
I don't.
Well, I couldn't find one either. Like, who do you play in the North back line? It's done my head in trying to work out who's even worth playing.
Correct. Yes.
No. But I expect North to give it to St Kilda because I just can't stand watching St Kilda and North. They're taking the game on and they're just dominating.
Now, speaking of St Kilda, we've had 2 games from old Hannah's, and he's been pretty good. So what does Moneyball do?
Oh, 5,500.
They keep it at 5,500. Gee whiz.
Lock him in.
Lock him in.
I think you got to lock him in.
I mean, this is not a Dustin Martin ownership fade. You just play him. If you get 60, if he gives you a Sydney Swans stink it up 55, 60 points, then well, hello, you're 65, 70% of sides are nearly dead. But
I prefer
not at St Kilda. What was that? Say that again.
I prefer to play Dusty than Hanbury. I want to eat the Dusty ownership more than I want to eat this Hanbury ownership.
All right. Okay.
I'll probably play them both, but I reckon North. I'm just going well North, and I'm just not convinced Hanbury. Don't know what he's been up to the night before. How about Steph Martin in this? Now that they've got Oscar, I hope Oscar's back because he had his face messed up pretty badly last week. Big Oscar McInerney, but Steph is thriving with just that Oscar support as the second ruck, and they're giving Steph a lot. And now he's against Mumford. Now, did you watch GWS versus Eston last week, Smatho?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Did you watch Smack McKernan run into that goal in the last quarter?
Yes.
We all know it was touch, but who cares? We don't have to talk about it for 4 days. What I loved and what hasn't been picked up on is Mumford chasing him. Did you see Mummy about 10 metres behind him chasing him the whole way? Yeah, it was Mr. Larson, Happy Gilmore style, just chasing him down the fairway, and he got nowhere near him. Oh, if you haven't, just go and watch the highlights and rewind it, and he's just pounding the unbelievable footage. And Mumford's going to have to chase Steph Martin this week. Steph Martin's going huge because I've never seen a bloke more cooked than Brad Ebert's pretty cooked, but Shane Mumford. Shane Mumford wants to play on next year, fair dinkum. He is covering the ground worse than I am at the moment, and I got beaten a running race by my 7-year-old son on Sunday. So that's it. And Mumford is going worse than that. So Steph Martin, and it could be a double ruck stack from me on Sunday. Smatho, Prusy Bear, and Steph Martin.
Wow. Love it. Especially when Mumford only had 4 points at halftime last week. We're off him for the rest of the year. None of this biased bullcrap that you might read every time on the DFL website. If a guy stinks it up by halftime, you don't play him again. I don't care.
That fast deck at Marvel, that doesn't suit Big Mummy.
All right,
we've got through it for another week, man.
We go through a week. We got some debating hot takes, and we've got some we've got our balls out.
Bets we got on.
Yes, we have to run through the table. We'll come back next Wednesday.
I was going to say we've got more bets on than a certain someone, but that'll get us in trouble.
Reluctantly, I'll come back next Wednesday while State of Origin is on the decider, Game 3, and we'll do it all again next week for round 17 for the AFL. Happy 21st show, Hef. Thank you for joining me again once again to deliver your wise knowledge to the viewers tonight. Thank you, Hef.
Thanks, Smatho. See you next week.
See you next week, viewers. Have a good weekend. We'll see you on the leaderboards. Ciao. Take it easy.